Welcome to My Life His Story. I'm Bryan Flannery, joined by Heather Flint. Here's the thing. When we kicked off this idea of this podcast, sharing people's stories and walking with people to help them know that they can overcome obstacles just like other people have, we felt that it was really important that you knew we're not just two people that are sitting here talking to people, but we're two people with stories as well. And so today, we're going to kick off My Life His Story by talking to our very own co-host, Heather Flint.
Hey.
And, and Heather, I don't think that you would say that life was always easy for you.
No, that's for sure. Always easy. I don't even know that I would say it's ever easy.
Yeah. And I mean, starting from a young age, it kind of got tough rather quickly, right?
Yes, it actually did. I would say even before I was born, if I was being completely transparent. Um, I was born into a lot of abuse. My mom told me stories of significant abuse even while I was in the womb, to the point of her almost losing me. My Well, she was kicked and pushed down a flight of stairs when she was very pregnant with me, and a lot of other abuse. So that's where it even started. So, yeah.
Yeah. So this welcome to the world kind of generational trauma, um, you 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 bless the world with your presence, and I guess even as a child, you were no stranger to trauma, correct?
That's right. That's right. And as the first, and even born as a Taurus, so I guess I kind of own that early on. And as the oldest, and older sister to a younger brother, I came out uh, loud and strong, and a protector from the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, and this protector led to some kind of tough situations at a young age for you, which, and you and I know each other well. And so
Me
I
too.
kind of know that even from a young age, you almost had to grow up early, right?
I did. So, with the abuse and things, obviously that didn't stop once I was born and once my brother was born. We grew up in a home that was full of just chaos and turmoil and abuse and drinking, substance, all of those things. And so it was always just full of just chaos, like I said. And so when you grow up that way, it kind of forms who you are at a very deep level from your DNA and all of those things. And so it kind of, predisposes you to certain things. And so, I was always on edge and always, looking out and protecting and trying to protect my brother, even, and my mom as a young age. And so, yeah, it kind of changes who you are and forms who you are. And so from late nights of violence and arguing to gunshots in the home to threats of not calling for help, all kinds of things, from elementary young age and beyond.
Well, sorry, I have to ask a clarifying question because you just said something very briefly that I think if I was listening, I would be like, did she just say what I think she just said? And so I'm going to ask you to elaborate. You said gunshots in the home?
Yes, I did, Brian. I was hoping that you would kind of slide past that one, but I know you, like you said, very well. So, yes, so like I said, there was a lot of violence for quite a while. And so I remember one night specifically, I don't even remember how old I was, but I know that I was in elementary school and my brother I was probably 6 or 7, and he was probably three, 4. And we were in bed. They were fighting all day, drinking, and um, we heard a gun go off. And so, I mean, you freeze, the whole, trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And
Sure.
um, we were there, and my brother, we opened the door to the bedroom, and, we were kind of peeking out, like, what do we do? Did he kill her finally? Because he always said he did. And my brother's there. So I'm thinking, what do I do? I'm trying to protect my brother. Um, I want to go save my mom. These are just the things that are going through my head at a very young age. Turns out uh, it became a joke, as all it always did. He was cleaning his gun and it went off, right? And so that was just one example of many um, threats and attempts or action toward, I would say, that we experienced at a very young age. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And so, even from a young age, experiencing that level of trauma, it didn't get easier as you kind of got older, right? Because again, you were forced to grow up early. And so, moving into adolescence, that didn't change.
No, my mom finally got the courage, and I will say courage. So, if anybody is listening, I'm going to sidestep a little bit. And you're in any kind of a situation or you're in any kind of an abusive situation, please reach out and please get help because there is help out there. When we were going through it, there wasn't a lot of help. My mom reached out a few times and was not given help, and it almost affected our lives to the point of no return. But these days there are help, so please reach out. But she made a choice. She made a very difficult choice, and that was to leave her children with an abuser and escape. And so she left, and we were there. Eventually, I ended up getting to be with my mom, but she did leave, and we were there. And so because of that, different situations, I ended up having to be the adult, I guess, if you will, of the home. So fast forward, I, took care of the home. I took care of the checkbook, the shopping. I was chauffeur. My dad was a truck driver, so he would be gone for a week or two at a time. I would have to drive over 100 miles one way to get him at all hours of the night, plus go to school, take care of my younger brother, the home, the everything. I remember back then. And so for you younger generation, you may not remember this, but we had this thing called checkbooks. And so we had to, sorry. I had to, you would subtract the checks and all that anyway. If I was a penny off, we would get beat for that and stuff like that. And so, managing all of that while at this time now I was in high school. So trying to maintain all the things, right? And going through all that. And so, I don't know how far you want me to go into this, if you want me to pause for a minute or just keep
No,
going.
you're good.
I
You're
had this
good.
like turmoil inside of this balance of, being an adult and the pressures and just the weight of that and not understanding like what that even meant because I'm not, hello, and
Yeah.
not having any relief from all of that. And then being introduced at a younger age to alcohol. And so I'll never forget the time that I first, you know, got drunk, went to a party with an older kid and experienced that freedom, in that. Um, it was, it was the best feeling that I'd ever had. And so that started a whole nother trajectory in my life.
Yeah, and it's interesting that once somebody experiences trauma, their natural instinct is to run, numb, or cry, right? And it seemed like for a while you just kind of took it on the chin, but then it led to this numbing, right?
Mhm.
Where you had found this alcohol that gave you this relief where you didn't have to worry about, balancing books and chauffeuring around and taking care of others, and you could just kind of escape that reality, right?
Yeah, crying wasn't an option. Not at all. It wasn't accepted. And so I didn't have many, I couldn't run, obviously. And so the only thing left was to numb. And that's exactly what I did. And I did it well from a very early age. I learned um, to do it very well, to maintain, to numb and maintain life at a very, very early age. It was survival. That a lack of better word. I mean, it was survival. I was in survival mode. Um, and obviously it led to a whole host of unhealthy decisions and things and all of that. But I was surviving the best I could with little to no choices. Honestly, I wasn't, I wasn't given much, and I did the best I could with what I had.
Absolutely. And I think that's what most of us do, right? Like we make decisions that at the time we think are the right decisions, not understanding that sometimes it leads us down a worse path or sometimes it leads us to danger. we don't understand that at the time. It's just what feels comfortable. It's what we know. I mean, you had said it yourself that you grew up in this environment where um, it was normal, and so uh, all of this, you graduate high school, and it leads you to the desire to numb. Kind of leads you to a profession that made it convenient for you, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to go back real quick, back to childhood, and I'll go fast through this. But one thing that I left out, that I had forgotten to mention, because I was trying to go through this quick. For you guys that know, I am the type of leader, of peer, of co-host, of just person that I'm never going to ask somebody to do something that I will not do myself first. And so this is a very uncomfortable thing, but I would never do it without without doing it myself, or asking ask somebody to do something I won't do myself first. And so I skipped past a whole thing that I forgot to mention, but in all of the turmoil and trauma and things that I grew up in the midst of all of that, the Bible, God was interwoven in all of that. During the abuse and all of those things, the Bible was used. My when the abuse was happening, the Bible was used for that. I was always told, even as a child, like that we were going to go to hell. Like we were abused in the name of the Bible. We were to do all these things, and it was always, we were forced to go to church and all of these things. And so I always had this inner turmoil. Like I always felt this presence. I always, when I would go to church, I felt good. As a little kid, I would do all the things, and I always felt it, but I never felt good enough. And so even at Sunday school and church, I didn't fit in because I was living in a lie. There was this hypocrisy and this religious hypocrisy. My dad, who is telling me to do all these things, is drinking and beating the family, and yet not going to church, but saying that we have to. And then as I grew up and got to the age where, I was making the decision because he's not there. I didn't do that. And so I just was always in this turmoil with religion. I felt inside this presence and this desire and this longing, and I would call out to God and cry out, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I always lived in this inner battle and struggle. And so fast forwarding to where I think Bryan may be leading, because he knows me, we know each other well, and he knows my story. God was always a part of my story from the time I was as young as I can remember, but it wasn't a part of the relationship, was not a part of my story. Religion was. And
Mm.
so I think we fast forward to where maybe your next question. And so I just wanted to give a little backstory, um,
Yeah,
to where we may be leading.
yeah, but through this, because you make a great point. Like religion has been weaponized, not only not only here in the Western world, but globally, and that's a very important part to bring up. And this weaponization of religion mixed with this substance abuse, mixed with just kind of everything you had been around, as you said, like you did the best you could, you did the best you knew how, and that led you to a place where you knew you needed to support yourself financially, you knew you needed to make some decisions, and so that led to you uh, choosing a occupation that was beneficial for your coping and your numbing mechanism, but kind of sent you down another kind of spiral staircase going down, right?
It did. And that was over 25 years ago. So I'm dating
Yeah,
myself a
yeah.
little bit. Um, but yeah, so I know, old. But it did. So I ended up moving to Michigan, to be with my mom. And so after high school, I finally was able to escape. And I got a job, waitressing, which turned into bartending, and I loved it. It was fun. Like you said, it supported the habit. It was a blast. I made good money, all of those things, and it was 24/7. Like I had a good time, and I was numbing and all of those things. And it did cause me to get into a little bit of trouble. And that trouble did completely change the trajectory of my life. And I found myself, in some trouble legally that I never in a million years would have ever thought that myself, that I would have ever been in. I
Mm,
did get arrested, which again, I never thought that I would be that person. And I don't know why I say that, but I did. Because even though I tried to do everything that I could to do the right things, I ended up getting arrested, drunk driving, because I was a bartender and waitress and I was always under the influence. Um, and even then, I mean, you would think that that would be a wake up call, especially for somebody that feared authority, feared being in trouble because of the way I was raised. With any little mistake I made was beating, right? So I had a major fear of authority and fear of getting in trouble and making mistakes. It didn't. It wasn't enough to wake me up. I still went right back to drinking, and finally just got to the place where I was drinking to blackout, and I hit my knees one night, and I looked up and I'm just like, God, I can't do this anymore. I'm I'm at the end. I either want to die or you've got to do something, but I cannot live like this anymore. I was in this cycle. So I was not at bottom by going to jail or any of those things. I just couldn't live the way I was. And so I had a doctor's appointment, just a regular doctor's appointment. And I just told her, I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so she's like, well, what about AA? And I'm like, no, that's not going to do it for me. Like, I'm beyond that.
Yeah.
And so she made some phone calls, and she ended up getting me into a treatment center that had a wait list for months. And she made some calls and got me in. And so I went into a 30-day, 32-day. I ended up staying a couple days longer because, I'm an overachiever. I don't know. And so I stayed longer. I'm like, I need more help. That's not going to do it. It's supposed to be 28 days or something. And I'm like, nope. And so through that, I was going to all the meetings and doing all the things. And one of my sponsors introduced me to a relationship with Jesus, and it changed everything.
Wow. So just to recap, you come into this world. It's a traumatic environment that you're coming into. I think you said it so perfectly when you said you entered the world in chaos, and you learned to thrive in this chaos. But this chaos molded a lot of your decision making, and it molded a lot of the the things that you adapted to numb and to avoid the pain. And these decisions led to you taking a job that made it convenient for you for your numbing, and then you have uh, this incident with law enforcement that you thought was going to change everything, but it really didn't. It even kind of pulled the carpet out from underneath and dug it even further, and all of that led to a moment where you hit your knees and you cried out for help, and there was a response. And I think this is the perfect time, ladies and gentlemen. If you're like me, you can hear this story and you're like, man, I get it. I get it. Right? But the good news is this is only the beginning of the story. So make sure you come back, tune in next week for part 2 of Heather Flint's story.